Boom. We're live and alive. Thank you. It's a beautiful day out here in sunny Sintra. That's where I'm at. Let's go live. I'm just gonna do a really short live. I want to test some stuff out. And I want to talk about something real quick that but mostly it's to test out this new setup. Something that we're trying to work with is going to be adding new autonomous AIs that are able to communicate with each other in real time. In the panel over here where I'm sitting at, and having an API that brings real time news in. We're not sure yet exactly. We've done the personalities actually. I have most of the thing coded. Um, Now it's just getting the WebKit and making sure that the temperament of each character is is put at a perfect level so they don't speak over each other. So that whenever Google API comes up with a new piece of news, which should be every like 30 seconds, will every character which has their personality has a different point of view on it, and you get like a late night show with a host, but from several different points of views. That's what we're gonna do with this. I like to call it the cybernetic part of Clinic of AI, because we talk about more about philosophical, about offshot, offbeat kind of things, rather than just what's the new technology that everybody's focusing on. We try to look at the different angles that sometimes go ignored. Uh, so all right. What am I doing? So you get used to this. Yeah, look, maybe I can. Yeah, this is the full coded. Once this works, well, it's gonna be very expensive to run because it's a real-time voice API. And yeah, we're talking about like 5 different characters. Um, I can give you quickly show you guys, at least those that are in horizontal view can see what I'm talking about. And in around 5 minutes, I gotta run. So this is gonna be a pretty short one. It's gonna be a short one. Let me see. Check. Start to score channel, Clinic of AI, best place to be. A lot of good news lately. A lot of cool stuff happening. A lot of opportunities for people that are getting into this space right now. We're not only educating, but I like to think that we're maybe even posing ourselves as possibly the future of academia 2.0. New ways to get people to learn, discover, kind of like keep the curiosity alive without strangling, or keeping the educational part alive without strangling all the curiosity that comes with it, which is, of course, not as easy as it sounds. Let me just fix my setup. I want to do actually a VR version of this pretty soon. And I was just researching how it works. there's so much stuff that you can do nowadays with streaming that is not being, people are sticking to the same way of streaming. Obviously there's very innovative kind of people. Okay, what I wanted to show you guys is in our toolbox, new meta. Maybe it's a bounty. We have a bounty service. So if you look, guys, like AI, generative AI, transformer models, tool strapping, duct taping, or traditional ML developers, AI developers, 100x developers, or deterministic developers, object-oriented developers, whatever. Always interested to hear about what you about. We have an application process. Right now we got 14 people waiting up, and we you gotta just leave a little bit of your information, experiences, etc. And usually we manage to match you with projects. But the long haul is, of course, that we are an educational channel and incorporated company with a lot of good news, which I'm still hesitant into making public, but soon I will, for sure. So in these bounties, one of them is exactly this, which is the stream. Yeah. The stream the stream, which has different has different people. Obviously they're all AIs, and except the host. And whenever there's like breaking news, the breaking news automatically has a flux generator. The flux generator appears top here at the top right, the image with it's kind of like a satirical take, more or less. And we then cover the news, but from a different perspective. So for those of you who are in horizontal view and can see this, this is basically, let me zoom in on at least the image so you can get an idea of where it's gonna go. Okay, so we're at early days still. We're trying to do something new, trying to do something different. AI is here not to only change what we what we talk about or what we build for B2B enterprises, but also the foundational ways of what we do things. And that's one of the things that I really encourage people to do, is always to think about how you could do things differently today rather than yesterday. Yeah, so like here you see like different descriptions of the people, and for those of you, like, I'm not going to show you the code. It's not worthwhile, but if we go, you can see it's pretty complicated structure and architecture that has a lot of technology, a lot of different agents, has a really strong backend and database that needs to keep evolving over time. And also we want to deploy then these characters eventually as individual characters online in Twitter space and the social media space. So maybe we'll meme coin them, so keep your eyes wide. Who knows what will happen. Anyway, back to what matters. I want to talk today about something that is a little bit different than what I talk about usually. And look, I'm not a doomer. All right. I mean, I was a doomer for quite some time, and I would say that I'm a cautious and I'm a cautious accelerationist. Okay. Um, the thing is, aside from I was a doomer, is I could say like most of the people that make part of Clinic of AI were doomers and had definitely concerns about the direction, the lack of regulation, the speed at which things were going, and the capacity at which we as humans were able to absorb or even control these things. However, um, the papers that have come out over and over again, the real, double-blind controlled clinical papers that are coming out in journals, I can't say that I've really seen a pattern which shows that, well, the biggest danger, of course, one needs to highlight this is the big danger, of course, is that AI takes on its own. We reach a singularity point and we reach some sort of AGI or ASI, and that we become subjugated to it, right? But the research at the moment shows no indications of that. In fact, unless we are totally biased in the way that we search and the way that we get our information, it actually shows a difference in which we are getting more, this whole idea of a black box of how LLM works is kind of unraveling slowly, so that we are able, like Google released a new paper, or no, it was Anthropic released a new paper where they had spy agents inside their LLM to try and figure out exactly how it was working. And they came up with some really interesting conclusions. To explain that, one would need to dive deep into, the context, data, parameters, and the equation and the mathematics behind that. But we're getting more knowledgeable about how they work, and so there is still, of course, a reasonable argument to make to be careful, right? And there are definitely going to be outlier situations of people that are going to use this for malicious purpose. In fact, that is happening already, and we had this case inside our own organization in terms of big North Korean deep fake scam, which I'm not going to get into now. But what I want to get into now and today is about a different kind of premise, which is that we are at the foothills of a second Cold War. And that is a big statement to make, and I don't make it lightly, but I make it on the observations that I've had recently. And in our traditional nature of keeping things, at least here on the AI diagnosis show, as cybernetic and polymathic as possible, we want to parallelize and we want to create parallelisms between what's happening now and history and how they converge and what we can learn from that, right? At the end of the day, we must not forget that what is most important for the future hominoid, the future Homo sapien, is not a speciality in one particular topic, but being a generalist or being somebody, in other words, that doesn't necessarily need to have an extremely high IQ or an extremely high memory capacity, but the degree of abstract thinking is what is going to count. When we have all the tools, when we have all the different technologies, when this landscape of tools and technologies keeps evolving at a hyper exponential rate, what really matters is not the person that knows a particular technology as close to the metal as possible. It's really the person that is able to take a step back and be the architect and look at all of the landscape and figure out, okay, this is how basically we can put like a system design together, a schema together to build something and create value where value was not before. This philosophy is directly in line with this whole series of the AI diagnosis, because we look at cybernetics, we look at all the different emergent technologies which AI is a proponent of, not forgetting that AI is one technology amongst many, and although it is a force that we have not encountered before, what it will do, like any other technology that has historically been part of a paradigm shift from Gutenberg to the printing press, or Mercedes to the combustion engine. These things are proponents of then all the other business models that have been lying around and have been waiting for just that little thing, that spark that is able to propel it to the future, leapfrog it, quantum mechanics, biotechnology, material science, longevity. So many things that I could list out. Virtual worlds. So many. But today I'm going to talk about something that is... Oh, let me just tell my next... Let me tell my next... I want to talk about the fact, and going back to, we are at the foothills, if not already inside, deep inside, what could be considered a second Cold War. And if we look at the way things are right now, let's take a step back, and we got two superpowers. Let's compare it to what makes a Cold War. Well, the first Cold War, we had two superpowers with the U.S. and the USSR, and they were at odds with each other, and neither wanted to back down. Right? It was an ideology. It was a military competition. It was an ideological difference. So the West versus the Eastern ideology, authoritarian, if you want, versus democratic, debatable, but the democratic Western world. It was about economic dominance. It was about military superiority. It was about, interestingly enough, a boxing match, and also, not to forget, most importantly, almost a race to the moon. A race to the moon. There's all these, like, it's a Cold War, but there's a lot of warm things in the Cold War, right? Just like back then, they had Korea as like a proxy of the Cold War that was going to happen, and they had other smaller uprisings uh, that were definitely demonstrative that there was something coming, brewing up, that there was going to be. Oh, I'm going to have to go. The point is that right now we have the same thing with the tariffs. With the tariffs, basically the bonds in the U.S. have gone haywire. The bonds go haywire. It means if you have to pay more interest in bonds than in your in the budget of your Department of Defense, that makes your opponent, which in this case, in the new Cold War, is China, not the Soviets anymore, or let's say the allegiance behind China, which includes India and Russians. I mean, Russians wouldn't have invaded Ukraine without a go-ahead from Xi Jinping. And at the same time, the Western world, and the Western world as we know it, NATO, and of course the hot point there was Israel and against Palestine and Ukraine and Russia. Those were two ideological fights, and they're fights for, again, who is the one single supremacy, because we live in a Nash equilibrium, and in the Nash equilibrium, that means that no player makes a move, because whatever move a player makes would result in an unfavorable result for them. So what we have now, when Trump is making, and I'm not politically in favor or in disfavor of Trump. I like to keep politics out of technology, but unfortunately they're intertwined so much, and I'll go into it in another day in more details. What's happening is that they're actually pushing maybe Europe closer to China, and that, or to Beijing, and that could cause a big trouble, and it cause a great disbalance in what we currently know. And when you have these two superpowers, where you have leaders that are not taking a step back, which are, which are making the case that they want to be a supremacy and a superpower, then you have a similar situation, except that it's not an iron curtain anymore. It's a silicon curtain. We're not fighting over Apollo. We're not fighting over eventually the nuclear stockpiles. We're not fighting over like ammunition and new technology for tanks and weaponry. All right, I gotta go. But we're fighting for AI. And right now, China produces more than 50% of AI papers, even though we think we have the advantage. And Taiwan and China is integral to the chip making process. So this tariff situation is something that needs to be evaluated very carefully, not only because of how it influences people on an economical scale, but how it tilts the very, very delicate equilibrium, Nash equilibrium, which has kept us alive and breathing up until now. Thank you for another edition of The Diagnosis, and I'll see you for the next one.